All right, Marcus, I'm asking you to keep it 100 as you always do. The Cowboys right now are better or worse than they were at the end of last year?
Worse, and it's because of unknowns. Listen, they drafted Dallas Smith. They're high on him. All of the reports that I'm getting that they like what they see out of him. Terrence Steele going over the right tackle with the departure of Lyle Collins, going to the Cincinnati Bengals. And at left tackle, the most important position in football outside of quarterback and pass rusher, Tyron Smith, has not played a full season in years, babyface. I'm concerned as hell. I'm not worried about the skill position players. I'm not worried about Dak Prescott. But no O-line, no good football. That's all it boils down to. So we shall see. But I'm concerned, and I think they have taken a step back until I see these guys play in these significant roles that they're in now.
Yeah, look, I'm with you. And as far as we just don't know, and Dak Prescott just alluded to that. He just said, look, they just haven't had a chance yet. But look, their first 3 draft picks this year are really going to tell the tale for just how this team looks once the season really winds down. Look, Tyler Smith, he's going to have to develop at left guard. He just does. Sam Williams is probably the key, though, for me as far as all of these draft picks, because he's replacing Randy Gregory, who, for all intents and purposes, was probably the hardest playing individual on this entire team. For him to leave and go to Denver is huge. Jalen Tolbert, the wide receiver, the 3rd rounder out of South Alabama, look, he has to be a guy who Dak trusts at some point in time during this season. Because CD, look, ask Juju Smith-Schuster what it's like going from number 1 to number 2 as far as the wide receiver option. What it's like to not have a guy to take some of the pressure off of you. He's going to get all that pressure now. So really now, Michael Gallup, you got to come back healthy, man. Jalen Tolbert, you have to step up. But Sam Williams, that name, that pass rusher, that young player, to me is the catalyst for all this, just like Micah Parsons was last year.
And you guys mentioned Tyron's back issues. Those are lingering. That concerns me. Obviously, no Amari Cooper. We said no Randy Gregory, no Lyle Collins. They're missing a lot of pieces. But here's where I think Dak Prescott is taking a step forward. He's trying to make up for all this loss, right? Something as simple as moving his locker next to CeeDee Lamb. It sounds kind of elementary when you hear that, but that's him trying to connect, trying to raise the level of what this offense has to be, because they know they do have some holes here. So I think this is the kind of season where Dak Prescott not only needs to just perform on the field, but he needs to be the best version of himself as a leader to make up for the things that they don't have.
And Diana, your last point is the most important point. Listen, Dak Prescott still has some things that he needs to get sorted and improve in certain situations and games as well. Now, we'll go through layers of whose fault it is before we get to Dak Prescott, because last year you could point a lot of the finger at the coaching staff and the decision-making of Mike McCarthy. But ultimately, the expectation now is for Dak to overcome some of those things. So he's under a microscope as well. But ultimately, when you look at this football team in totality, if I have questions about your offensive line, that's not good until you prove me wrong. I don't care how good your quarterback is. I don't care how good your running back is or your defense. If you can't block them, you can't win football games in this league. And we will find out really quick if Dallas is better or worse at that position group.
Yeah, this is the last thing I'll say about this, about who's going to be under the most pressure on this football team. It's the coaching staff. It's the head coach. Because we know that coaching matters. We know that clock management matters. We know that situational mastery matters. When to go for it on 4th down matters. Play selection down on the goal line in red zone in 2-minute situations. These are all the things that ultimately Mike McCarthy's going to be judged on. And we all know how their season ended last year. We all know what it looked like when they're trying to run down there and spike the football, don't we? And we all know whose head that fell on and how many hours we devoted to talking about it. That's the guy who probably is under more pressure than anyone, and he will determine the fortunes of this football team more than anyone in 2022.
It's a great point, Lewis. We don't have to talk about hot seats, so to speak, for head coaches in the last day of May before the season begins, but perhaps Mike McCarthy is under more pressure than any other head coach in the NFL this season.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.